I noticed a colleague of mine out there, Mark Bassett. He is our Southern Region coordinator from what was OES and now CalEMA. And Mark, I'd like to defer to you for a moment or two if you have any updates on alert and warning, or from your perspective, because you've been involved with it longer than I have.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking their time out of their day to come to this seminar. This is very important to us in California, especially as many disasters as we typically have. It's important to get the right message out. And I was listening to Jay, who's spot on as far as that message is so crucial to what we tell individuals, and making sure that whatever we tell them is the right thing to do, and because we do have that responsibility in government. Knowing that these campuses have those special needs, like Linda mentioned, we do have Richard Developer from our office that can assist any of you with special needs issues, or get you in contact with somebody out there to deal with those particular issues. But we look at the campuses as a location within that various operational areas or cities and such, where it's difficult because there's this population that's sitting in the middle of that particular jurisdiction. And how do we best work with them? And let us help you, and let us work with you to try to help you out. We know it's been a struggle. I know the past histories as far as the issues related to is a campus a state agency, or are they an agency within the chancellor's office, which is quasi-state? And it's one of those things that we need to sit down and discuss and make sure that we can come to a kind of an idea of how we're going to act. So our office is always open to that. We have 11 counties that are in the Southern Region area, and we have staff that we can get to your various meetings when you talk about this. So let us know how we can help you, and we do appreciate you coming out today. And again, one message, and that's what we're trying to get out there. And so, alert notifications are so important to making sure people don't lose their lives. So however we can best do that, I'm glad you're having a seminar today.
Yeah. So if we have I'm sorry, do you have any questions queued up? Because if not, I have 2 tips I'd like to offer.
Oh, please.
Okay, if this is a good time for it. It's just occurred to me as I've been making notes, that reminds me. 2 tips from practical experience building and operating a warning system. And I should tell you that my warning system in Contra Costa County gets to actually issue a warning to some part of the county approximately once a month. So we actually have a fair amount of opportunity to do this, and not just build a capability and then hope we never use it. And 2 things that I've discovered that may be useful to you. The first one, vendors, please close your ears for a moment. If you can negotiate a deal for, and this is particularly apropos of telephone and SMS and various wireline or wireless notification systems, but if you can negotiate a contract that does not have incremental costs for use, not per call costs, not per minute costs, even if you have to pay a premium, you will find yourself very much better. Here's why. When you are presented with an emergency and you're asked to issue a warning, one of the questions that you really don't want to be in the position of having to ask is, do you have authority to obligate, $5,000, right? I don't think any of us wants to be on the record as having had that conversation when lives were at stake. So if you can, negotiate some sort of a flat rate agreement, I would encourage you to try to do that. It saves you a lot of paperwork in terms of having interagency agreements for reimbursement, and also it just means that when lives are at stake, you're not talking about money, which I think is a conversation you don't want to have if you can avoid it. You may not always have that freedom, but I've found that if you can, it's really useful. The other thing that I found is really crucial is to have a clear and simple policy for use of the system. There will be enormous anxiety about the system being misused. There will be people who would like to use the system to promote their special events. You'll run into all sorts of issues. And I mentioned that the fear of not having a clear-cut policy can cause people to retreat from using the warning system and instead invoke rationalizations for why they didn't. The two all-time favorites being, I didn't want to start a panic and I didn't have all the information yet. You don't want to go there. So, our policy for the Contra Costa system is one line. I mean, this does not have to be a hard thing. Our policy, which works for us, but I make your own judgment, is as follows. We will use the community warning system in any case of imminent threat to human life or health. Period, full stop. Now, there are a couple of details there that are significant. First off, imminent. If the message can be communicated by some other means, by leafleting, by news releases, then we don't do it. So it has to be really time critical, right? And it has to be a threat to human life or health. We do not include property there. Why don't we include property? Because once you include property, you're on a slippery slope to everybody who wants to protect everything. And the policy decision that the sheriff made, and it seems to have worked out, is if you can't come up with some rationale by which at least the health of at least one individual is threatened, it's really not that serious. It can wait. You can use some other mechanism. Again, opinions may vary. There are some people who feel that we're being unfair to animals. There are some people who would say you should have a minimum number of people. Well, we use the system on a localized basis for missing persons. There may only be one person at risk, but if that person is facing an imminent threat to their life or health, then we say we can use the system. My point is, A, that you really need to have that sort of a touchstone that is well documented so everybody knows that they're on safe ground if they stay between those lines. And number two, that the policy does not have to be a lengthy document that's going to take 3 years to get through legal counsel. It really can be very simple. And I encourage you, as part of your design of your alerting systems, to include that sort of statement of purpose and scope in your charter. It will save you a lot of heartburn.
And if I can follow up to that, that's all wonderful advice there, and to have these systems in place. And just remember, still, we're all human. One of the people we interviewed and is part of our course with the Public Officials Initiative is former Governor Pete Wilson, and he had a wonderful quote that says, basically, you can recover from mistakes, but you can't always, in most cases, you cannot recover from inaction. So when you have these policies in place, it will encourage the action to be taken. Mistakes may or may not be made, but you can recover from them. But inaction cannot be recovered from.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. I would even go further and say mistakes will be made.
Yeah.
And believe me, nobody will die, right? And one of the things you want to have in your plans is, how do you retract a mistake? Don't make the mistake of designing a system that assumes that the actors are perfect, because that puts them on a pedestal that they will find a way down from. This is where we get into the whole cry wolf thing, and I don't want to get too far down that road, but it turns out that people are actually remarkably tolerant of false alarms, which I guess explains the continued existence of the National Weather Service. The problem is not of desensitization does not in fact come, as the cry wolf image suggests, from false alarms. It comes from irrelevant alarms. It comes from bombarding people with alerts that aren't about them anyway. And this is why being able to target your messages as precisely as you can becomes really important. But as I say, people will tolerate a mistake made in good faith and corrected timely. Inaction is the sort of thing that leads to federal commissions.
Marissa, would you have any tips or any little tidbits in your experience you'd like to add?
Well, along the lines of what Art was just speaking about, we had an incident on Saturday night in which a city or a jurisdiction, which will go unnamed, did put out an alert with Alert San Diego, which crossed multiple jurisdictions. So for the example of the training, of the people who will actually be issuing the notification. The training has to be kept up, as already mentioned. We hope that we will not use these, and if you have to use them for recalling staff as part of a drill, not notifying the entire student body, but notifying staff for callback, that would be an appropriate use